In the year 325, amidst the rolling hills and ancient traditions of Etruria in central Italy, I, Gallus Caesar, was born into the esteemed lineage of the Constantinian dynasty. My birth name, Flavius Claudius Constantius, echoed the grandeur of my forebears, who had already begun to shape the course of history. My father, Julius Constantius, was the half-brother of the great Constantine the Great, the first Christian emperor of Rome, whose legacy cast a long shadow over our family. From a young age, I was acutely aware of the weight of my heritage. My early years were spent in the shadow of great men and monumental expectations. My elder half-brother, Julian, later known as Julian the Apostate, and I were raised under the strict Christian tutelage that our father deemed essential. We were taught to venerate the teachings of Christ and to adhere to a rigorous moral code. Our days were filled with the study of scripture, philosophy, and the arts of governance and warfare. The lush countryside of Etruria provided a serene backdrop to our childhood, but our lives were anything but tranquil. Our education was overseen by stern tutors who ensured that we were well versed in the history and politics of Rome. They drilled into us the importance of duty, loyalty, and the unyielding pursuit of excellence. Julian and I formed a bond that would endure through the many trials that lay ahead, though we were often reminded of the differences that would later drive us apart. My mother, whose name history has largely overshadowed, was a figure of grace and strength. She instilled in me a sense of piety and resilience, qualities that would prove indispensable in my later years. However, our family was marked by tragedy. The untimely death of our father cast a pall over our household, leaving Julian and me to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics with only our faith and our education to guide us. As we grew older, the political landscape of Rome became increasingly complex and perilous. Our uncle, Constantine the Great, had set the stage for a unified empire under Christian rule, but his passing left a power vacuum that would soon engulf the empire in strife. The internecine struggles that followed saw the rise and fall of many would-be emperors, each vying for control over the vast territories of Rome. Despite the turbulence, my brother and I continued our studies, preparing for the roles we were destined to play. Julian, ever the philosopher and scholar, delved deep into the writings of the ancient Greeks, while I focused on the practicalities of governance and military strategy. Our paths, though intertwined, began to diverge as we each sought to carve out our own destinies within the sprawling empire. The seeds of my future were sown in these formative years. The values of duty, loyalty, and a steadfast commitment to the Christian faith became the bedrock upon which I would build my life. Little did I know that these same values would one day be tested to their very limits as I ascended to the heights of power, only to face the ultimate betrayal. But for now, as a young man in Etruria, my future was a tapestry yet to be woven, with threads of ambition, faith, and destiny waiting to be interlaced. The year was 351, and the empire was in turmoil. Constantius II, my cousin and the reigning emperor, faced threats both internal and external. The fragile unity forged by Constantine the Great was fracturing, and the empire needed strong leadership to weather the storm. It was in this crucible of chaos that my destiny was forged. I, Gallus Caesar, was summoned to the city of Sirmium, present-day Sremska Mitrovica in Serbia, to take on a mantle of responsibility that would forever change my life. Constantius II recognized the need for a trustworthy ally to govern the eastern provinces. I, with my strict Christian upbringing and the blood of Constantine flowing through my veins, was seen as a fitting candidate. On March 15, 351, in a grand ceremony filled with pomp and solemnity, I was proclaimed Caesar of the East. The title came with immense power and equally immense peril, as I was tasked with safeguarding the eastern frontiers of the empire against myriad threats. To solidify my position and strengthen the bonds within our family, Constantius arranged for my marriage to his sister, Constantia. Our union was one of political expedience rather than passion, but Constantia proved to be a steadfast partner in the turbulent years that followed. She was a woman of strong character and deep piety, and her counsel often tempered my more impetuous inclinations. My ascension to the throne was not without its challenges. The eastern provinces were a hotbed of unrest, with revolts flaring up in Palestine, Etruria, and Galatia. The spectre of the Persian Empire loomed large, ever eager to exploit any weakness in our defenses. I knew that to secure my position, I had to demonstrate both strength and wisdom. Thus, I threw myself into the task with unwavering determination. One of my first acts as Caesar was to establish my headquarters in Ansh, a city of great strategic and economic importance. From there, I could better oversee the administration of the eastern provinces and coordinate our defenses against the Persians. Ansh, with its bustling markets and diverse populace, became the heart of my rule. But it was also a city rife with intrigue and dissent, a constant reminder of the precarious nature of power. The revolts in Palestine and Etruria were swiftly crushed under my command. I deployed my legions with ruthless efficiency, quelling any resistance and reasserting Roman authority. In Galatia, I personally led my troops into battle, earning the respect and loyalty of my soldiers. My success on the battlefield was matched by my efforts to fortify our eastern borders, holding the Persians at bay and securing the stability of the region. Yet, with power came enemies. My strict, isolated upbringing had made me stern and tactless, traits that did not endear me to the local elites. My insistence on maintaining a tight grip on power and my implementation of a widespread system of espionage to root out treason bred resentment among those who saw me as a tyrant. Reports of my heavy-handedness began to filter back to Constantius, sowing seeds of doubt and suspicion. As I paced the halls of my palace in Ansh, I often found myself consumed by thoughts of betrayal. There were enemies everywhere, or so it seemed. I would spend countless hours pacing the floor of my palace, trying to ascertain their identities, my mind racing with the possibilities of who might be plotting against me. The weight of my responsibilities and the constant threat of treachery pressed heavily upon me. In these moments of solitude, I would reflect on the path that had brought me to this point. The teachings of my childhood, the values instilled in me by my family, and the legacy of Constantine the Great were ever present in my mind. I resolved to stay true to those principles, to govern with a firm yet just hand, and to protect the empire that had been entrusted to me. Little did I know that my efforts, however earnest, would ultimately lead to my downfall. The throne I had ascended to with such hope and determination would become the stage for my tragic demise, as the forces of fate conspired against me in ways I could never have foreseen. As Caesar of the East, my reign was marked by an unrelenting struggle to maintain order and stability in a region perpetually teetering on the brink of chaos. The years I spent in Ansh were a testament to the dual nature of power, the splendor of command and the ever-present specter of treachery. My strict governance and unwavering dedication to the empire were both my greatest strengths and the seeds of my ultimate downfall. The challenges I faced were manifold. Ansh, while a vital hub of commerce and culture, was also a hotbed of political intrigue and dissent. My predecessors had allowed corruption and inefficiency to take root, and I was determined to root out these malignancies. To this end, I instituted a widespread system of espionage, believing that the only way to safeguard my rule was through vigilant surveillance. Agents were stationed throughout the city and the provinces, reporting back on any hint of disloyalty or conspiracy. I knew that many considered my methods harsh, even tyrannical. But I also knew that the empire could not afford to be lenient. In Palestine, Etruria, and Galatia, I had already demonstrated that rebellion would be met with swift and decisive action. The same principles guided my administration in Ansh. I dealt with corruption and treason ruthlessly, ensuring that those who threatened the stability of the empire were swiftly and publicly punished. Yet, as the reports of my actions filtered back to Constantius, they were often colored by the biases and agendas of those who resented my rule. Subordinates and local officials, eager to curry favor with the emperor, painted a picture of a ruler who was excessively brutal and paranoid. They whispered that I had become consumed by my desire to root out enemies, real or imagined, and that my heavy-handedness was driving the provinces to the brink of rebellion. In truth, my days were filled with a constant sense of vigilance. I would spend countless hours pacing the floor of my palace, trying to ascertain the identities of my enemies. There were enemies everywhere. The flicker of a shadow, the hushed whispers in the corridors, the sideways glances of my advisors all fed into my growing paranoia. The pressure was immense, the responsibility crushing. I could trust no one fully, not even those closest to me. Every decision, every action, was weighed against the potential for betrayal. Despite these challenges, I remained committed to my duty. I worked tirelessly to improve the infrastructure and defenses of the eastern provinces. Roads were repaired, fortifications strengthened, and the economy bolstered through judicious reforms. I sought to leave a legacy of stability and prosperity, to prove that my reign, however brief, had brought tangible benefits to the people of the East. But the seeds of discord had already been sown. The reports reaching Constantius grew increasingly dire, painting me as a despot whose actions endangered the very stability I sought to preserve. The emperor, already preoccupied with threats on other fronts, began to doubt my loyalty. The relationship between us, once founded on familial trust and shared purpose, began to fray. In the summer of 354, Constantius summoned me to Constantinople. The pretext was a council to discuss the pressing issues of the empire, but I sensed the true purpose behind the summons. I knew that my enemies had succeeded in turning the emperor against me. Despite my misgivings, I obeyed the call, hopeful that I could explain my actions and reaffirm my loyalty to the empire. As I departed Ansh, a city I had come to both love and loathe, I could not shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. The roads that had once symbolized my efforts to unite and strengthen the empire now seemed like pathways to my doom. The fate that awaited me in Constantinople was uncertain, but I resolved to face it with the same determination that had characterized my reign. The journey was long, and as I neared the imperial city, the weight of my responsibilities and the ever-present threat of betrayal grew heavier. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead, of the enemies I had failed to identify, of the choices I had made. The paranoia that had gripped me in Ansh now seemed like a dark premonition of what was to come. In the grand halls of Constantinople, I would soon face the judgment of my cousin, the emperor. The outcome of that meeting would seal my fate and determine the legacy of Gallus Caesar, a ruler whose reign was marked by both greatness and tragedy. The journey to Constantinople was fraught with tension and unease. As I approached the imperial city, the weight of my fears grew heavier. Despite my hope to clear my name and reaffirm my loyalty to Constantius II, I could not ignore the gnawing dread that this journey would end in tragedy. Upon my arrival, I was received with the outward respect due to my rank, but beneath the surface, there was an undeniable undercurrent of suspicion and hostility. The city, with its grandeur and splendor, now felt like a gilded cage, and I, a prisoner awaiting judgment. The courtiers whispered, and the eyes of the palace guards seemed to follow my every move. Constantius had convened a council to hear my case. I stood before him, a man whose fate hung in the balance. My cousin, the emperor, had once been my ally, my blood, but now he was my judge and, perhaps, my executioner. I presented my defense, detailing the measures I had taken to secure the eastern provinces and protect the empire from its enemies. I spoke of the revolts I had quelled, the defenses I had strengthened, and the peace I had maintained. But the accusations against me were many and varied. I was charged with excessive brutality, with fostering an atmosphere of fear and distrust, and with alienating the local elites whose support was crucial to the stability of the region. My efforts to root out treason and corruption were twisted into a narrative of paranoia and despotism. My accusers painted a picture of a man consumed by power, whose methods were as destructive as the threats he sought to eliminate. As I stood there, listening to the litany of charges, I felt the walls closing in. The council, swayed by the testimonies of those who sought my downfall, found me guilty of misrule and tyranny. Constantius, ever the pragmatic ruler, decided that my continued presence as Caesar posed too great a risk to the stability of the empire. The decision was made: I was to be stripped of my powers and sent into exile. But exile was not the end that fate had in store for me. As I departed Constantinople under guard, the reality of my situation became clear. The journey took me to the remote region near Pula, in present-day Croatia. There, far from the political machinations of the imperial court, I awaited my fate in a state of perpetual anxiety. The final blow came swiftly and without mercy. I was arrested and condemned to death. My guards, once symbols of my authority, were now my executioners. As I faced my end, I could not help but reflect on the path that had led me here, the teachings of my youth, the battles I had fought, the enemies I had made, and the empire I had sought to protect. In my final moments, the weight of my responsibilities lifted, replaced by a profound sense of resignation. The paranoia that had plagued my reign, the relentless pursuit of enemies both real and imagined, had culminated in this moment. My death was not the result of a single misstep, but of the complex interplay of power, fear, and ambition that defines the life of a ruler. On that fateful day in 354, near Pula, my life was extinguished. I, Gallus Caesar, once the guardian of the eastern provinces, met my end far from the seat of power. My death was a stark reminder of the perilous nature of authority and the ever-present shadows that accompany it. In the annals of Roman history, my name, Gallus Caesar, is often overshadowed by the more prominent figures of my time. Yet, the legacy of my reign, brief and tumultuous as it was, provides valuable lessons on the complexities of power, the burdens of leadership, and the fine line between vigilance and paranoia. My strict governance and harsh methods, while controversial, were born of necessity. The eastern provinces, rife with rebellion and external threats, required a firm hand to maintain order. In Palestine, Etruria, and Galatia, I demonstrated that the empire could still command respect and loyalty through decisive action. These achievements, however, were overshadowed by the narratives of my perceived tyranny and paranoia. Historians and scholars often debate the true nature of my rule. Some view me as a tyrant whose obsession with rooting out treason led to unnecessary cruelty and alienation of the local elites. Others recognize the difficult position I was in, tasked with stabilizing a volatile region amidst constant threats. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. My actions, though harsh, were driven by a genuine desire to protect the empire and maintain its unity. The system of espionage I implemented, designed to uncover plots and treason, became a double-edged sword. While it did expose genuine threats, it also fostered an atmosphere of fear and mistrust. This, in turn, fed into the very paranoia that ultimately led to my downfall. My efforts to secure my rule and protect the empire inadvertently contributed to the perception of me as a despot. My relationship with Constantius II, once strong and founded on mutual respect and familial bonds, deteriorated under the weight of misinformation and political maneuvering. The reports from my subordinates, often skewed by their own biases and ambitions, painted a distorted picture of my reign. Constantius, preoccupied with other threats to the empire, came to see me as a liability rather than an asset. This misjudgment sealed my fate. Despite my tragic end, my reign offers enduring lessons on the challenges of leadership. The balance between strength and compassion, vigilance and paranoia, is a delicate one. My attempts to maintain this balance, though flawed, were genuine efforts to fulfill my duties as Caesar. The paranoia that consumed me serves as a cautionary tale for future leaders, a reminder of the dangers of allowing fear to cloud judgment. In the years following my death, the empire continued to face internal and external challenges. My half-brother Julian, later known as Julian the Apostate, would rise to prominence and leave his own indelible mark on history. Our paths, though divergent, were shaped by the same upbringing and the same turbulent times. Reflecting on my life, I see a narrative of ambition, duty, and ultimately, tragedy. I sought to uphold the legacy of Constantine the Great, to protect and strengthen the empire he had forged. In doing so, I became a part of that very legacy, my story interwoven with the broader tapestry of Roman history. As historians continue to study my reign, I hope they remember not just the failures, but also the context in which those failures occurred. The challenges I faced, the decisions I made, and the principles that guided me all were shaped by the complexities of a vast and fractious empire. My legacy, therefore, is not one of unmitigated tyranny, but of a ruler who grappled with the immense responsibilities of power and the ever-present threat of betrayal. In the end, the story of Gallus Caesar is a testament to the enduring struggle between authority and anarchy, vigilance and fear, and the unending quest for stability in an empire that spanned the known world. My life and reign, though brief, offer insights into the nature of power and the human condition, lessons that resonate through the ages. Thank you for watching. Our channel, known as the Renaissance Spirit, is dedicated to the pursuits of a just, equitable, and humanitarian world. Video topics encompass areas including history, politics, religion, personal development, society, culture, social and environmental justice, and other topics of liberal arts and sciences, including ancient Rome and the Roman Empire, which is a great comparison and contrast of the modern world. Topics perfect for the true modern polymath. The Renaissance ushered in a golden age and the pursuit of knowledge both lost to time and yet to be discovered. It gave birth to the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason. Embracing truth, knowledge, and an understanding and compassion for humanity and our shared history opens up the world to each of us, individually, and improves all of humanity, affording us the opportunity to be better stewards of the earth and to each other. The Renaissance spirit, more than just a philosophy or style, but a style for living, learning, growing and thinking. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share. If you're looking to explore and experience what life has to offer, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other videos on my channel. Please peruse, and let me know in the comments what you get out of them and what other videos you'd like to see. But first, please take the quiz next to see if you're a Renaissance spirit. Live the Renaissance spirit.